In a remote village nestled deep within the African wilderness, two sisters, Chetta and Ifechi, lived under the weight of a fractured family. Their father had taken two wives, and the rivalry between them had spilled over into the lives of their daughters. Though they shared blood, the sisters were more like strangers, caught in the tangled web of their mother's resentment. Chetta, the daughter of the first wife, carried a heart full of love and an unrelenting desire to unite with her half-sister. But Ifechi, poisoned by her mother's bitterness, saw only competition where love should have been. Chetta had always been the kind one, the sister who reached out despite Ifechi's hostility. She longed for a relationship with her sister and did everything she could to win her over. One day, while wandering through the village market, she spotted a stunning dress and immediately thought of Ifechi. She imagined how the vibrant colors would suit her sister perfectly and, without hesitation, purchased it as a gift. But when she presented it, Ifechi recoiled, her expression twisting with suspicion. "This dress is charmed," she spat, pushing it away. "You want to bring me bad luck." Chetta's heart cracked at the accusation. She had only wanted to make her sister happy, but Ifechi refused to believe in her sincerity. No matter how many times Chetta tried to mend their relationship, Ifechi met her kindness with rejection. The hatred passed down by their mothers was too deep-seated, and Ifechi saw her sister's generosity as a facade, an act of deception. Years passed and the bitterness between them festered. Chetta, despite the pain of rejection, remained kind-hearted. Her generosity extended beyond her sister. She found joy in helping others, offering her kindness without expecting anything in return. One afternoon, on her way to the farm, she spotted an elderly woman struggling to carry a heavy basket. The woman's frail frame trembled under the weight, but when Chetta approached to help, the old woman shook her head. "I can manage," she murmured, though the strain in her voice was evident. But Chetta insisted, "Please, let me help." Reluctantly, the woman allowed her, and Chetta hoisted the basket onto her head, walking alongside the woman back to her home. Upon arriving, she noticed the woman's son lying on a mat, his body drenched in sweat, his face pallid and sickly. "He has been unwell," the old woman sighed, worry etched into every line on her face. "I went to fetch herbs to make a healing mixture." Without hesitation, Chetta set the basket down and hurried to the kitchen, gathering the ingredients the woman had brought home. She worked swiftly, preparing a meal for the mother and her son, making sure they had something warm and nourishing to eat. Hours slipped by, and by the time she finished, the sky had darkened. The old woman thanked her with teary eyes, and Chetta, feeling content with her good deed, bid them farewell and made her way home. But as she stepped into her house, she was met with rage. Her father stood in the center of the room, his face contorted with fury. "Where have you been?" he roared, his voice echoing off the walls. "Papa, I was helping—" Before she could finish, Ifechi interjected, her lips curling into a smirk. "She was at her lover's house all day," she declared. The accusation hit Chetta like a slap. Her father's face darkened, and his anger shifted to her mother. "This is how you've raised her?" he bellowed, placing the blame where it did not belong. Chetta tried to protest, tried to explain, but Ifechi's words had already sunk in. Ifechi watched with satisfaction, enjoying the chaos she had created. It was a victory for her, a way to humiliate her sister and win favor with her father. Yet, even as tears stung her eyes, Chetta refused to harbor resentment. She would not let Ifechi's hatred change who she was. The next morning, before the sun had fully risen, Chetta left home to visit the old woman and her sick son once more. She arrived to find the boy sitting up, eating the food she had prepared the night before. He looked much better, his strength slowly returning. "You are a kind soul," the old woman told her. "Not many would do what you did." A warm feeling filled Chetta's heart, but she had no idea that her simple act of kindness would change her life forever. Days later, the boy, Chuma, returned to full health. He sought out Chetta, drawn to her compassion and warmth. He visited her often, and as time passed, his admiration for her deepened into something more. Before long, he asked for her hand in marriage, eager to make her his wife. Chetta was overjoyed. Love had found her in the most unexpected way. When Chuma's family approached her father with the marriage proposal, the arrangements were swiftly made. Soon she became Chuma's wife, stepping into a new chapter of her life filled with love and promise. But as happiness embraced Chetta, bitterness clung to Ifechi. Watching her sister wed a man who loved her deeply was unbearable. With each passing day, her resentment festered. Her mother, unable to stand the thought of Chetta thriving while her own daughter remained unmarried, pressured Ifechi into accepting the proposal of Achebe, the village drunkard. Ifechi, once so proud, now faced a humiliating reality. And so, the lives of the two sisters took drastically different paths, one built on kindness, the other poisoned by jealousy. But fate was far from finished with them. The story of their tangled destinies was only just beginning. As Chetta's marriage brought her into a world of happiness and devotion, Ifechi's life spiraled into bitterness. Watching her sister bask in love, respect, and prosperity ignited a rage deep within her. Ifechi had always believed she was superior to Chetta, yet fate had dealt her the cruelest hand. Her mother, unwilling to see her daughter left behind, pressured her into accepting the proposal of Achebe, the village drunkard. Achebe was notorious for his drunken brawls and careless behavior, a man with no ambition or respect in the village. Ifechi had once scoffed at the idea of marrying such a man, but under the weight of her mother's coercion and the looming shame of remaining unwed, she relented. The wedding was a somber affair, devoid of the joy and excitement that had filled Chetta's ceremony. Ifechi felt humiliated, forced into a life she detested. Unlike Chuma, Achebe was not a man of kindness or virtue. He spent most of his days drinking and his nights filled with anger. Ifechi's once proud spirit was crushed under the weight of her marriage, but her jealousy toward Chetta never waned. If anything, it grew stronger. She watched from afar as Chuma and Chetta's love blossomed. Their home was a place of peace and laughter, while hers was filled with arguments and resentment. Achebe would come home reeking of alcohol, his temper volatile. Ifechi felt trapped, but she clung to her pride, unwilling to admit she had made the wrong choice. Instead of acknowledging her own suffering, she chose to focus on Chetta, blaming her for the misfortune that had befallen her. Months passed, and both sisters found themselves pregnant at the same time. The entire village rejoiced at the news of Chetta's pregnancy, celebrating the impending birth with gifts and well wishes. Ifechi, however, received little attention. Even her own mother seemed more invested in Chetta's growing family than in her own daughter's plight. Their due dates approached, and on a fateful night, both sisters went into labor just hours apart. The household was in chaos. The cries of pain echoed through the night as the midwives worked tirelessly to bring the babies into the world. Ifechi's mother stayed by her daughter's side, determined to ensure that her child was safe. Meanwhile, Chetta's mother, though weak from illness, did her best to comfort her daughter. Then, something unexpected happened. If Ifechi's mother had been expecting a moment of triumph, she was instead met with disappointment. Ifechi had given birth to a baby girl, while Chetta had delivered a son. This revelation sent a wave of discontent through Ifechi's mother. In her eyes, a boy was a greater blessing, one who would carry the family name and bring honor to the household. She could not allow Ifechi, her favored daughter, to be overshadowed once again. A sinister idea took root in her mind. As the newborns lay side by side, swaddled in cloth, Ifechi's mother made a decision that would change the course of their lives forever. Under the cover of night, while the household was still in a frenzy from the deliveries, she switched the babies. Chetta's son was placed in Ifechi's arms, while Ifechi's daughter was given to Chetta. No one noticed the deception. The exhaustion of childbirth had drained both mothers, and in the confusion of the night, the switch went undiscovered. Ifechi's mother left the room satisfied, convinced that she had secured a better future for her daughter. Ifechi, still weak from labor, never questioned the child placed in her arms. She was simply relieved to be done with the ordeal, unaware that she had been given the wrong baby. Meanwhile, Chetta cradled her supposed daughter, unaware that the child she had given birth to now lay in her sister's arms. She looked into the baby's eyes, feeling a deep, unexplainable connection, and whispered the name Uma. Ifechi, holding the boy that was not hers, named him Afam, never knowing that he was Chetta's son. As the years passed, the deception remained hidden. The two children grew up believing they belonged to the mothers who had raised them. Afam, raised by Ifechi, grew distant from her. He sought solace in Chetta's home, drawn to her warmth and kindness. Uma, though raised by Chetta, carried a sense of unease, never quite understanding why Ifechi looked at her with such disdain. But secrets have a way of unraveling, and the day would come when the truth would be revealed. A single moment of carelessness, a twist of fate, and the entire village would come to know of the betrayal that had shaped the lives of the two sisters. The question remained: what would happen when the truth finally came to light? For years, the deception remained buried beneath the surface, an invisible thread weaving through the lives of Chetta, Ifechi, and their children. Time passed, and Uma and Afam grew into their own personalities, shaped by the homes they were raised in. Uma was gentle, yet spirited, a reflection of Chetta's kindness, while Afam was more reserved, drawn toward Chetta as if sensing something unspoken between them. The village admired Uma's grace, yet Ifechi never warmed to the child, often treating her with distance and subtle disdain. Afam, on the other hand, found himself seeking refuge in Chetta's presence, drawn to her warmth in a way he could never explain. Ifechi, plagued by her own misery, saw this growing bond between Afam and Chetta as yet another slight against her. She resented the way her son gravitated toward her sister, as if sensing the love that Ifechi herself had been incapable of providing. Even as Afam grew older, his respect for Ifechi diminished. He questioned her coldness, her bitterness, and often preferred to spend his time in Chetta's home. Ifechi's anger festered into something darker: jealousy, hatred, and eventually, a thirst for revenge. One evening, driven by resentment, Ifechi sought the help of a powerful juju man in the village. She pleaded for a way to bring suffering upon Chetta and Uma, convinced that they had stolen her joy. The juju man listened carefully before handing her a small pouch containing a dark powder. "Mix this into their food," he instructed. "But beware, it spares no one but your own blood." Ifechi hesitated. The realization struck her. Afam often ate at Chetta's house. She voiced her concerns, and the juju man agreed to adjust the charm so that it would not affect her son. However, in doing so, he needed something in return. "A drop of your blood," he demanded, "so the spirits know whom to spare." Desperate and blinded by hatred, Ifechi agreed. That night she visited Chetta under the guise of reconciliation, an event so rare that Chetta welcomed her with open arms. Ifechi laughed and reminisced, feigning warmth as she waited for the perfect moment. When Chetta stepped away, Ifechi rushed to the kitchen, sprinkling the dark powder into the pot of stew simmering on the fire. Her heart pounded as she imagined her revenge finally coming to fruition. She returned home, waiting anxiously for the news of Chetta and Uma's sudden illness. But the night passed, and the next morning, no tragedy unfolded. Chetta and Uma were alive and well. Ifechi's fury erupted, and she stormed back to the juju man, demanding an explanation. The juju man, perplexed, performed another ritual to uncover the source of the failure. What he discovered shocked him. "You have broken the rule," he whispered gravely. "The spirits did not spare your own child." Ifechi's blood ran cold. She had unknowingly placed the charm upon her own flesh and blood. But how? Afam was supposed to be her son. Then, as the juju man's incantations continued, a chilling truth unraveled before them. The spirits revealed what had been hidden for years. On the night of their births, Ifechi's mother had switched the babies. Uma was Ifechi's biological daughter. Afam was Chetta's son. The truth shattered Ifechi's world. Her mind reeled, struggling to grasp what this meant. All these years, she had despised her own daughter, and the son she had cherished was never truly hers. Overwhelmed by the weight of her sins, Ifechi's mind snapped. She let out an ear-piercing scream and ran through the village, wailing like a mad woman. She tore at her clothes, eyes wild with terror, unable to face the consequences of what she had done. The villagers gathered, murmuring amongst themselves as they watched Ifechi unravel. Rumors spread like wildfire, and soon the elders sought the wisdom of a seer to uncover the truth. The seer confirmed the horrifying tale. Chetta had been raising Ifechi's daughter, and Ifechi had been raising Chetta's son. A gasp rippled through the village. Mothers clutched their children tighter, shaken by the magnitude of such a cruel deception. Chetta was devastated. She struggled to process the revelation. Afam, the boy she had always felt a deep connection to, was her own son. Uma, the daughter she had loved unconditionally, was not hers by birth, but in her heart she would always be. But what broke Chetta most was Ifechi's attempt to harm them both. The sister she had tried so hard to love had poisoned her own child. Afam, upon hearing the truth, was overcome with sorrow. He turned away from Ifechi, refusing to acknowledge her as his mother. "You were never my mother," he said coldly. "You only cared about yourself." With that, he left Ifechi's house and sought refuge with Chetta, choosing her as his true mother. Uma, though devastated by the revelation, could not bring herself to embrace Ifechi. The woman who had borne her was the same woman who had once tried to kill her. Her heart ached, but she knew she belonged with Chetta, the only mother she had ever known. Ifechi, stripped of everything, her son, her daughter, her mind, was left to wander the village, broken and lost. No one took pity on her. The villagers shunned her and her mother for the deception they had wrought. They had doomed themselves with their own wickedness. The once feuding sisters had met their ultimate fates. Chetta, despite her heartbreak, had won, not through malice, but through kindness. She had built a family rooted in love, while Ifechi had destroyed hers with envy and greed. And so, the tale of two sisters came to a close, a story of love and hate, of betrayal and redemption, but above all, a story that taught the village an unforgettable lesson. Jealousy is a poison that destroys all, including the one who harbors it.